What's up? Welcome to Fantasy Smack Talk. I'm Dustin, sitting here in Nameco, heading into week 3 of fantasy baseball. Plenty of people to look at and maybe even pick up. Let's get right into the waiver wire.
And we're going to start with Lance Berkman. Obviously, he's a well-known name, but he's only owned in about 90% of leagues right now. And that's because he started the year on the DL. We're saying if you're in that 10% where he's not owned, you might as well pick him up and see how it pans out for the rest of the way. Next, we have Casey McGee. He's owned in 75% of leagues right now, and he's off to a tear. He's batting over 400 with 4 home runs and 10 ribbies. Best thing about him, he's second base and third base eligible. Next, we have Chase Headley, owned in 55% of leagues. He's third base and outfield eligible. He's got an over 400 on base percentage at this point, a couple bags. He's a great utility player for any team.
Next, we got an outfield for you in Maben, only owned in 30% of leagues. Everyone was drooling all over this guy last year, and now he's actually producing and no one's picking him up. He's batting over 300, little bit of speed. If you're looking for an outfielder, could fill that void. Next, we got Ty Wigginton for Baltimore, only on 15% of leagues. He is a little bit older, but his power numbers have been there so far. Who knows if he can keep it up, but with first base, second base, and third base eligibility, perfect guy to have on your team and plug in when your regulars have an off day. All right, let's take a look at a couple young pitchers. Jonathan Sanchez in San Francisco. Only on the 75% of leagues right now. This is the perfect type of guy to be picking up right now. Young pitching with upside. 17 Ks in 12 innings. He ended last year on a positive note. He's carrying it into this year. Pick him up now before it's too late. Another guy that's in the exact same boat as Ricky Romero. Only owned in 75% of leagues as well. This guy is off to an amazing start. Sub-2 ERA, good whip, and good strikeout totals. All right, let's get into a segment called Don't Believe the Numbers.
Don't believe the numbers!
That's right, don't believe the numbers. We start with Barry Zito. This guy is off to an amazing start, but don't believe the numbers.
Don't believe
All right.
the numbers.
He's not going to keep it up. The guy has not had a good year. I think it's been 4 years since he's had a relevant season. He's going to come crashing back down to earth. Trade him now if you can, if you have him. Next, Jose Guillen, another guy that you should definitely be trying to trade if you own him. He has not had a relevant season in many years, and even when he did, it wasn't even that crazy. He's not going to come out and just have a great year being another year older. Try to dump him now if you can. And last guy I want to talk about is Alex Gonzalez for Toronto. He hasn't been a fantasy relevant shortstop since 2004, and we seriously doubt he's going to be this year. If you're counting on him being your everyday shortstop, you might want to look elsewhere.
Now I'm going to talk about 3 guys that you don't want to believe their numbers about how poorly they're doing thus far in the season. And the first one's Justin Verlander. We touched base about him last show. The starting pitcher for Detroit is off to a terrible start.
Don't believe the numbers!
It's fun, but don't believe the numbers is that's what I'm saying. Basically, we think he's a great buy low candidate right now. Try to go out and trade for him. And next we have 2 first basemen in Mark Teixeira and Prince Fielder. You don't want to believe how terrible they're doing right now. If you own them, hold on to them. Don't do anything rash. And if you're looking for a first baseman, they're great buy low candidates right now. All right, Dustin, let's get into our forum questions, and this one comes from Jack V440. He wants to know, should he trade Magdalene Ordonez for Brian Roberts, and he does need help at second base.
Well, yeah, Ordonez is actually one of the people I was considering on adding to our segment and don't believe the No, we're done with that. We don't believe the numbers, but I do think he actually could have a decent season. I wouldn't be surprised if he has over 20 home runs and 100 RBIs. But that being said, you can probably find an outfielder that's going to give you comparable numbers on the waiver wire. As far as second baseman goes, you're going to have a much harder time finding a Brian Roberts type player on the waiver wire. Now, Roberts is going to be out for another 2 or 3 more weeks, but it's a long season. You're going to hear us say that a lot. And if you all need a second baseman, I think this is a good gamble. It is a gamble, but I think it's a good one. I say you go ahead and pull the trigger on this one. That's it for this week's show. As always, get into our forums if you got any questions. I'm Dustin. This is Brent. We'll see you next week.